Hey guys, welcome back here to Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel and hanging with me a little bit. And guys, have you ever noticed, if you're over 40 years old watching this, which a lot of my demographics over 40, that the size of fish that you catch start getting smaller, and the older you get, the smaller the fish you catch. This is a reality. It's like, now I'm not saying that you can't catch good ones occasionally, but if you look at a graph of how the number of quality fish that you catch when you're younger versus you get older, it definitely starts to go downhill as you get older. And I want to explain to you guys why that is, maybe some things that you can do to turn that around a little bit, but there's nobody that's been immune to it as they get older. So we're going to discuss that in today's video here. And also, guys, for get started, two quick things I want to remind you guys. We do have my spring Fish the Moment lake map breakdowns up on the fishthemoment.com website. These are maps that I have built specifically for fishthemoment.com. Great resources to get some good places you can download straight on your GPS unit for spring fishing. So again, I'll have that link in the description. And also, guys, thank you very much for everybody who's been taking advantage of all those spring fishing sales at Tackle Warehouse and using my link. If you guys want to support Intuitive Angling, you want to give something back to the channel for the fishing tips you get here, just go to my description in every video, hit and bookmark my Tackle Warehouse link for your tackle purchases, and that really helps the channel out, and me and my family really appreciate that. Okay, this is something that I have fought and I've had a hard time with my whole life, because one of the things that I started noticing, and I've mentioned this before, but it's been 30 years ago now, I started noticing that Rick Clunn, who was always in the top 10 angler of the year and never missed a classic, he started finishing a little bit lower and lower in the standings every single year. And I noticed some of the younger anglers started doing better than he was. And I remember asking him a long time ago, I don't understand this. I said, you've got so much more knowledge and experience in fishing, and how does somebody that's younger than you beat you and they don't have that experience? And he didn't really have an answer for it. I could tell he was been thinking about it and puzzled by it, but that remained with me, that whole conversation. And I've spent the last 30 years trying to figure this out, and I think I've got some answers. Because if you look across the board at guys that were at the top of their game, like when they're in their 30s, and then you look at them when they're in their 50s and 60s, and they still catch fish, but they do not catch as many good fish. It's like, when they were 35 or 37 years old, they'd bring in a lot of 17 to 20 pound limits. And now, if they're 55 years old, they bring in a 10 pound limit. Why is that? And that is not like a one-off. That is something that is across the board. Now, there's isolated tournaments where that's, you can still do really good. But overall, everybody's performance drops off. It's like when somebody hits 45 or 50 years old, they start going downhill. I don't care if it's in a tournament situation or just a fun fishing situation. Nobody's been immune to it. Kevin Van Dam dropped off in his 50s. Brower, Clunn, Roland Martin, everybody starts dropping off when they're 50s, catching smaller fish. And one of the things that really hit home with me is a friend of mine was fishing a tournament down at Grand Lake this past weekend. And I don't want to say who it was, but one of the guys that were in the tournament, he was probably 70 years old now. And he was in the tournament. And guys, this guy, 25 or 30 years ago, he was freaking in the top 5 in any tournament around here, Grand Lake. I mean, he was a guaranteed 20 pound limit if he was in a tournament. It was like his consistency was incredible. And again, I think he had 9 or 10 pounds for a limit in that tournament last weekend. And this has happened 2 or 3 times. I've noticed that he's, caught limits, but small ones. Why is that? Okay, let's talk about why it is. It's a combination of a lot of different things that go with it. So let's get into every aspect of it. First of all, there is a physical decline that's undeniable. And that can be slowed a lot by taking care of your body and keeping your core and your legs strong and all that type of stuff. But what happens, and I've noticed in my own fishing, it's like everybody's vision starts going down close up. So even with reading glasses, it takes me longer to tie a knot now. That's probably the number one thing for me that I've noticed getting older, is the dexterity that you have. I used to be able to tie a knot in a split second in the dark with my teeth and my mouth and my fingers. I was all over the place. But as you get older, it's like you can't see your line as good when you're trying to thread it through the rod. I mean, when you're the dexterity that you have for tying a knot is a little bit slower. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you will, because I was one of those guys that thought I was immune to all that crap. And then when you start hitting, 50 years old, you start seeing it a little bit. So that's one basic thing about it. And your reaction time and your movements in the boat, all that type of stuff begins to slow down a little bit. It's like I can look at somebody's posture when they're in the boat based upon how old they are, and you can just tell the shape that they're in from their posture. So there is a physical decline that comes with that, which has a part to play. Now, all the stuff that I'm going to talk about, guys, they have little bitty parts to play that adds up. So you take number one, the physical part of it starts to go downhill. So you got one mark against you right there. That maybe, whatever aspect of that's contributing to not catching as big a fish. The second with that, and this is a big one too, is, and I've noticed this in mine and everything, is you don't take as many risks when you get older. Guys, back when I was in my 20s and 30s, I didn't think nothing about jumping a sandbar going 55 miles an hour in my boat. It's like, I considered any damage to my boat as just part of the cost of doing business as a professional fisherman. I didn't care if I scratched my boat up. I didn't care, if I could get it back in this backwater, and if it was going to cost me $2,000 in boat repairs, I'd still do it. I don't do that anymore. I don't take those type of risks anymore. Again, there's something that happens when you get a little bit older that you don't want to do that. So that's number two. You got the physical part of it. You don't take as many risks. Number three with that, it's like you've had so much success in the past that it's hard to throw away those things that's been working for you. It's like this happens to everybody. That doesn't happen when you're younger because you haven't had a lot of success. So you don't have a lot of crutches to rely on, things that have been good to you. So as you get older, you say, for example, if you like to fish a crankbait or a jig or whatever, that's sort of your go-to because you've caught so many fish. You tend to go to those particular techniques, even though they may not be the best technique for the time that you're fishing. So that adds another strike against it. You got three now. Another thing with that, it's like you don't have a tendency to want to be as adaptive. Now, this is something that goes along with the whole aging process because you want to do what you want to do. It's like a lot of times it's more important as you get older to enjoy the process and enjoy the experience rather than the result of it. So I may do something that's like, say for example, I go to a tournament and I know that I should be throwing a finesse worm. That's how the tournament's going to get won or whatever it may be. But it's like, I don't like throwing a finesse worm. Maybe I want to fish my jig. So instead of doing what it takes to catch the fish, you do what you like to do to catch the fish. And that adds up to another aspect of it. So you've got every one of these little things. They all contribute to the fact that you're catching a little bit smaller fish. And then a lot of it is just like your pace. It's like sometimes you have to be hard charging and fish aggressively in order to trigger those bigger bites. And you have to hit 100 places. So instead of like when you're 30 years old, you hit 50 spots in a day and you're hard charging, making 2,000 casts a day, you may not want to be up and down out of that driver's seat and that trolling motor just constantly back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You may want to just chill out and relax a little bit. So that takes you down a little bit. So it's this combination of like, a dozen different factors that adds up to the reason why most anglers start catching smaller fish when they get older. It's not because they don't have the experience, because from a logical, rational, critical thinking point of view, it doesn't make any sense. If you have all the experience, you should know that you should or shouldn't be fishing in a certain way as you get older. But we don't do that. And like I said, nobody has figured out the otherwise. And it doesn't make any difference on how you think you're doing now and that you may be immune to it. Because I can promise you guys, if you're a 20-year-old flat brimmer right now that's on the top of the world because you've figured out the the umbilical cord to success with forward-facing sonar. 30 years from now, the same thing's going to happen to you. You're going to have the same thing happen. You're going to have so much success in however you used to like to fish, that it doesn't work anymore, and you're going to get locked into your ways, and you're going to have a hard time tying a knot, and it's not going to be quite as easy to get up and down out of the boat. It's the natural process of fishing that does not make any sense in my mind. But on the upside of that, one of the things that I can tell you is, even though that you're going to start catching smaller fish, and your tournament successes are not going to be as much, and you're not going to have the same level of intensity as you had when you're younger, in many, many ways it's better, because you get to appreciate the entire experience of fishing that goes well beyond just catching fish. Guys, if you are focused right now on your entire deal is just catching them, and who doesn't like to catch them? We all like to jerk on them. I'm not saying that's wrong, but if you are so relegated to just feeling that bite and fighting those fish, you're missing out so much more than what is out there to be had fishing. It's like there is such a world out there that is gratifying beyond just catching fish. And I think that as you get older, you start being more aware of that, and fishing becomes more, it's not that it's better or worse, but it becomes different in a more satisfying way. The only way that is to experience it yourself, because I know what it's like, guys. I know what it's like to be 25 years old and jacked up on testosterone and full of the vigor of life, and you got the world's in front of you. I know what that's like. I've been there and I've done that. So I know the process that you go through over the years, and there's no fighting it. It's like, if you're one of those guys out there that tries to fight it, that it's not going to happen, you're wasting your time. If you want to fight something, the best thing you can do, guys, is get in the gym and resist that aging process physically, because you do have control over that. I mean, you can slow the aging process down tremendously physically just by keeping your body in shape. But everything else that goes with it, the cognitive, the mental part, the reactionary time, the vision, the mental approach to fishing, everybody goes down the same path with that. That's just sort of like the process of life that is just is what it is. So guys, let me know what you think about it. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk later.